Hi everyone, welcome to According to His Way. My name is Hyuna Lee. I'll be sharing what God has been teaching me in my daily walk with Him as I'm sharing with my friends and family. So thank you for joining me today. We have a special guest today. His name is Richard. And I mentioned that before, but he works at a HSBN here in the studio. And he is just so talented with what he does, but also he is sold for Jesus. So it's so good to have him in this studio in my show today, continue to talk about the issues in diversity, division, and the racial issues that we are facing in this time. So welcome back, Richard.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, we had so much fun last time. Time went so quickly. We
I know,
couldn't even cover the half of what we had.
Well, we better do better because the second one usually goes faster.
I know. But do not worry. If you need more time, we can do to be continued. Okay, for the third part. So just spit out everything you have in your heart and what Holy Spirit is leading you.
Let the Spirit take it.
Exactly. Just be free. Yes. So there's no limitation in time and place. It's all His, right?
Exactly.
So last time we touched base on the cultural differences, and we talked about our experiences in our past. And he's a perfect person to talk to because he was surrounded by different culture, and me coming into a different culture, so it's a perfect scenario, right? And we are sitting together in harmony. Person who grew, born here, grew up here, and person who moving into, immersed into, yes, unity. There is a unity right here, so it's perfect. And we also touch base on what God's view on these issues. And we talked about the Tower of Babel, and I briefly talked about Acts 4:32. But you can always go back to the previous show, watch his passionate...
You're too kind.
Exactly. You can actually rewatch it, but I'm going to briefly talk about what God has shown me during my meditation about this issue. So he definitely mentioned about Tower of Babel. That is all people's pride behind that, and God was not happy. People were building the tower up to heavens so they can reach the heavens. It sounds more like, fallen angels, right? I want to be like God. I want to be up there, and that's the pride behind all this. And God was not happy. They all had one language before, but then God confused everyone with the different language so they not be able to understand each other. They kind of scattered and divided, right? And then Acts 4:32 got highlighted because I was walking through Acts that time. The verse, I'm going to read it for you guys, is 4:32 is, all the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. Interesting. There's no correlation between these two, But how I understood is like what God has in kingdom, because He's our Father, right? Whatever He has is mine, right? So in Tower of Babel, like that's pride. Oh, I want to be higher than you, greater than you. I'm going to go up there, look down on you. I'm going to do everything in my power and then control you. All that stuff. But it's so contrast from the Tower of Babel. God is saying that everything Father has is mine. So all my sisters and brothers in Christ, what you have or what I have, the kingdom shares the same thing. So we share the kingdom community. Yes. So there's no distinction, right? There's no superior, inferior, who is better than me, who is lower than me. There's none of that, right? There's no distinction between, because whatever God has in the kingdom has mine. And for you too. So there's unity in that sense. So like, okay. So we have to be humble. We have to really see things through the God's lenses and see it in the same equal, what is it, proportion, right?
Right.
So that's what we kind of talk about that last time. And today we'd like to talk a little bit about more practical ways, right? Because we understand, we love to be operated by Spirit. That's what we are longing for. Our daily lives reflect on spiritual realm, right? But also we have physical body, right? You and I, physical body, we eat and sleep and everything.
Yeah.
We do everything this earth until we join our Father in heaven. So we have to learn how to find the practical ways to that we can be united. We can live in harmony. We can get along. He
Right,
said last
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
So maybe we
exactly.
can talk about that. So Richard, what do you think? Is there any certain like some ways that you can give the viewers practical ways to be exposed or to immerse into different culture or have better understanding of different races and cultural backgrounds?
Yeah, so first I want to start with just the basis before I get into the specifics, which is simply back to we talked on the last episode about, do unto others as you would have others do unto
absolutely.
you. You have to have that in the back of your mind. If you don't have that in the back of your mind, it's very easily to let things get under your skin. It just is. So, for instance, when you're dealing with people, whether it's food or clothes or whatever it is, you need to have that in mind because that's going to be the basis by which you interact in anything else. So, for instance, I'll start with something simple like food, some people are very picky about what they eat. Some people will eat anything. I think the important thing when it comes to things like this is to figure out what it is, like where are you at? Because you don't necessarily have to try another culture's food to understand them. You don't have to try their clothes, but there's something somewhere in there where if you're around a certain culture all the time, you need to find some sort of common ground because if you don't, it's again very easy to let the enemy step in and start creating divides that are just, the thing that you get mad about and you're and then 5 minutes later you're like, I'm sorry God, I'm just being a jerk, and like just thinking about myself again. So that open-mindedness,
Yes, absolutely.
and so like for instance I can give an example of living in Orange County, at least North Orange County, pretty much everybody, even if they don't know what it is, they've heard of pho. The Vietnamese dish, a popular Vietnamese dish. It's a rice noodle, and it's typically, at least here, served as in a soup fashion. Now, the first time I think I was either like a senior in high school or maybe just graduated, and one of my friends is like, "Oh, you want to go get pho?" And I'm like, "Pho? What's that?" I thought he was saying a curse word. I mean,
I know, sounds like it
in
a
the
little
English
bit.
language, there's those things, and so I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, it's food, blah blah blah." And I kind of wanted to, I don't know, and he's like, "Trust me, it's really good." And so I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I'll try it. I'll give it a chance. Because I'm that kind of person. Food is something where it's like, as long as it doesn't. I'm more of a texture person, so like. If something has a weird texture, that's usually where I don't like things. Sometimes things have weird flavors, but the things that typically make me just go are things with just strange textures. I love sushi and seafood, but don't give me octopus, please. It's too chewy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that
it's
sort of
okay,
thing.
have a preference.
Right, and that's what I mean is sometimes we get so sucked into the idea of, oh, well, this culture eats this food and I don't like that, so X, Y, Z.
Right.
It's like, you can
there are
go
more
to,
options. Hello, right?
Right. You can go to a Chinese restaurant here, and if you talk to people who have come from China, you're going to find out real quickly that there's some of the stuff that's similar, but a lot of the stuff here is Americanized.
Exactly.
There's things added to it, or they're very cherry-picked dishes that are only common in maybe some small sections of a country, and so you find out, oh, there's a much more rich thing. So don't let yourself get trapped into, I tried this piece of sushi and it's terrible, so I'm never going to try any of that again. Now, if you don't want to try it again, okay.
It's all about the attitude, right?
But
the heart you carry.
Don't let that be a dividing thing, because I've seen this to some extent where people will, I don't like this food, and then they'll turn around and somebody does something from that culture that annoys them, and then they turn around and use that thing as, you stupid whatever, and it's like, sometimes it's just us lashing out stupid. But I mean, think about it. If you're a Christian and you're doing this, if people know you're a Christian, you're making Christ look bad, number one. And number two, you're just, you're confusing people. Because people say, oh, look at this racist, or look at this, look at that, this bigot. And sometimes it's like, no, this person made a dumb comment. Like, we have to be careful.
Right.
So, again, culture clash, if you go, and I think it's more if you go somewhere, but we also need to understand that just because I live here doesn't mean I have exclusive, monopoly on how you should act and, what language you should speak in a restaurant.
No.
I mean, even those of us that haven't dealt with, very outright hatred.
Yeah.
A lot of times you've unfortunately heard some people say some things. And I mean, sometimes it's somebody that you're like, why did you just say that? Like, I know you don't hate these people. I know this. And they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, oh, no. Like, that's not what their culture is about. We start projecting things onto their culture based on a bad experience we had or whatever. And so we have to, when we want to, the way I put it is, if you feel like you need to lash out in any way, if you feel even an ounce of annoyance, you probably shouldn't.
But first of all,
say
you
it.
should not. You should not feel that way.
Well. So this is the thing. You shouldn't be entertaining.
Right.
Because here's the thing: the devil will come in and try to plant a seed. Oh, this stupid this. And that might go through your mind.
Yeah.
That's not the sin. The sin is if you sit there and go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's stupid this.
Right.
And even worse, if you vocalize it.
Yeah.
And here's why it's worse if you vocalize it. For a couple reasons. Not only can other people hear it, but guess what? The devil you might be able to hear the devil throwing thoughts at you, but he can't necessarily hear your thoughts back. The second you vocalize it, he can hear it.
Yes.
That's why there's a principle about what to say, when to say it, and when to say nothing at all. Because sometimes you're giving an inroads that's showing, oh, hey, that little tiny seed I threw over there, it might not have worked, but it definitely got him riled up. So we're going to have to find something similar that will,
Yeah.
So, yeah. If you feel even that little angst of anything,
I agree.
Stop and say, why am I feeling like this?
Yes.
Pray about it.
Yes.
Lord, why do I feel like this? This doesn't seem right. I shouldn't be mad about this seeming thing. And I mean, let's be clear. Sometimes things will happen between cultures that aren't appropriate. Plain and simple.
Right.
And those things have to be called out. But we can't use that mentality as an excuse to just bat it around every time something comes along.
No.
It's a bad habit.
Yes.
So for me, I think the thing that I say in dealing with different cultures the most is you have to be able to begin to realize when those wrong thoughts are coming in and recognize that it's making you feel a certain way. Because if you don't realize that, it is so easy to trip and make the mistake.
Absolutely. Because I agree. We all have our own bias because we have our experience.
And that's normal.
It's very normal. But when the thought comes, we got to stop and pause and set aside and ask God to give his visions, his eyes to see people differently, because we are dominated by our flesh, right? At that point.
Right.
So we have to learn to shift our mindset to align with his visions, his eyes, his lenses to see things the way he sees, right?
Right.
So it's a process. It's something that quickly, okay, I'm a newborn Christian and everything will be all like turned out to be beautiful and it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
We have our flash, right? So that's a process, the effort we have to make, to renew our minds.
And so what you just said actually sparked something else, which was talking about culture. Now, here's something interesting you might not think about when we say culture. Homeless culture. Homeless culture.
Yeah.
I know somebody in his name is Brian Peterson. He has an organization called Faces of Santa Ana. And what basically his story is, he wasn't a Christian. He always heard this homeless guy outside of his apartment. He called him the screamer because this guy would just be screaming, and it was like, oh, that guy. Well, Brian got saved, and through one day, the Lord just, spoke to him like, you need to talk to this guy. So he went and approached him, talked to this guy, and one thing led to another. I won't tell the whole story, but essentially, he decided, he asked this guy, would you be willing to let me paint you? I want to paint you the way God sees you.
Oh,
and what he did is if you look up his art, Faces of Santa Ana, it's amazing art that he draws of these people. You see the picture of this homeless person, and then the picture next to it, all these vibrant colors. You're just like, that's yes. Amazing. And so I know him a little bit. I had the privilege of meeting him, and on several occasions I've been at conferences with him, so we've gotten to chat. And the first time I met him was at a conference, and we were. Are you familiar with prophetic art?
Yes.
So it was a prophetic art exercise, and it was basically, pray to the Lord, is there something about this person that you want them to know that I can draw, and it doesn't have to be fancy drawing or anything. It's just, what do you want me to draw that kind of has a message about this person? And I had seen him up there because he was part of the conference. Right. He was going to be a speaker. He hadn't spoken yet, but he was up there the whole time, doing one of his paintings. And it's funny because I had heard of Faces of Santa Ana like a year or two prior. And I kind of realized oh, this is that guy, And so when I asked the Lord, because we got paired up for this exercise, I got paired up with him. And
lucky.
Okay. So, I asked the Lord, what do you want me to draw from? What do you want me to say? And he said, and he basically told me he has, he's looking at these people, these homeless people through my eyes, through my glasses. So he literally had me draw a set of glasses, and they had shining off them, the little streaks and stuff like that. And basically the message was you see people through God's lenses.
Yes. Amen.
And so talking about culture, we have, even, homeless versus non-homeless, there's culture clashes.
Yes.
And he came in, and so here's the fun part. Those paintings he does, what he does with them? He sells them for, a lot of money.
Right.
And that money, he gives to those people. Now, he does it responsibly, though. Because we all know, even whether you're homeless or not, many of us have that tendency. We got a lot of money, we want to just start spending it. So he's responsible about it. He basically, sets it up. It's not in an actual, necessarily bank. I don't know. He might have it in a bank account. I don't know. But he basically sets that money for that person aside, and they're able to, interact with them, and he can help them get things so that they're not just spending it willy-nilly.
Right.
But the money's still going back to them.
Wow.
That's good. All because God wanted this man to see these homeless people through his eyes.
Absolutely.
Just because you're down and out doesn't mean you're garbage.
Yes.
Yes. I'll be the first one to admit, I've had those moments where, because my older job, I had to deal with homeless people at night on the beach all the time. The beach is closed. You can't be here. And I felt bad,
Right.
But some of them were very nice. Some of them were complete jerks, to be honest. But, it was I didn't want to make it, I didn't want to treat this guy this way just because this guy over here was a jerk to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's funny looking back about, seeing people through God's eyes.
Yeah.
I realized that in a sense, God was having me do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there was so many times where I'm this and that, and I don't want to do this, and I don't know what to do, and then God just showed me, okay, do this and that, and then it got taken care of.
Yes.
I didn't have to kick that person out, or that person, when I said, hey, the beach is closed, you can't be here, they were nice, or whatever it was, even then, sometimes you still have to deal with the jerks that want to curse you out. Oh, I know. I slept here 5 years ago and nobody said anything. And, it's I'm sorry, but I always saw it as you might be out on the street, and some homeless people are people that you could almost call them nomads. That's their lifestyle. It's not that they're homeless and they want to be in a house. It's just that they just want to do the things their way, and they're okay with living on the street. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking.
That doesn't mean, but just because they want to be, some of them want to be there, also doesn't mean we shouldn't help them still.
Exactly.
When we can, because that's another thing too. Some of them will like push you out of the way. You know, don't help me. You know.
Yeah, even the Bible says you never know. You might entertain the angel. Right.
Exactly.
So you never know, and it just you have to see that regardless. Whether you get involved with them, it doesn't really matter. If you get involved, that's great. But, a first step, to see them differently, see them how they are made in the image of God, right? Image of Himself, right? So we just honor that first. And the second step will come after first step. So we have to change our mindset and the view first before we do anything else. So it's important.
And like the picture I was talking about, you put on God's specs, to have His vision.
Yeah.
If you're doing that first, there shouldn't be an issue. The only way there's going to be an issue is if you put His specs on and then you let the devil find a way to get you to take them back off.
Right.
So if you got them on, you're good. But the second you
Unfortunately.
take them off, and it's that daily walk.
Yes.
You got to
constantly putting it back and make sure it stays stay there, right?
Exactly. The Apostle Paul had a thorn in the flesh that he had to deal with.
I know.
Constantly throwing accusations at him. A spirit from the devil literally says that's what the thorn is. So he's literally having to go throughout life, whether it's being accused of you used to kill Christians, or you're not really being effective. Whatever it was that Paul was hearing, he was literally hearing, accusation thrown at him constantly, which, I mean, any of us that have dealt with accusation know it's very discouraging.
Absolutely.
And very easy to say, oh, well, I'm not going to do this, Like right now, we're having this conversation. This is the second time I've been on your show. This is the fourth time I've been on any shows. And even then, the devil still tries to throw at me discomfort. I'll get a stomach ache or whatever it is. And I'm just like, Lord, I need you right now because, if I don't lean it, I'm going to get stressed,
Yes.
And I just, you sit there and he constantly tries to stress you out. And I mean, and again, he will do that in every situation. So when you're dealing with other cultures, it is so important to know God's voice.
Absolutely.
Because if you know God's voice, it's a whole lot easier to tell the devil's voice. Because God's voice, while He might correct you sometimes, isn't going to make you feel like trash.
Right. Not condemning, right?
Now, God might convict you of something, and then the devil turns around and tries to make you feel bad about it. But you got to stop and say, okay, what are we doing here? Because the second you start going down that path, it is so easy to divide with other people.
Absolutely.
Because you're having a division in yourself by separating, your communion with God. And so then it's just easy for you to divide from anything else.
Yeah. So piggyback on that. So that's why when Jesus brought His language back, right? Heavenly language back to us, we have to learn the language. It's not automatic. It's only you can develop that by daily walk with Him, right? Reading the Bible, studying, meditating on it, and hear His voice and value and steward the word and the voice from the Lord. And that's how you learn. Just like learning any other language, it's not automatically, I'm going to just memorize ABC and be done with it. No, it requires practice, right? It requires like little boldness to talk to other people, right?
Yeah.
So there's a process. You have to learn the language. And it's slowly. I mean, trust me, this is miracles. Just, really speaking to you, sharing this in English. Hello, I grew up in full-on speaking Korean, and I got here when I was 20. So my mother tongue and my stronger language is Korean still. But it's the process. I practiced, I went through a little up and down, but I try to bear that stress and hardship, but it came a long way, so that's the same thing, that God's language. You just have to put some time in it, put passion in it, and your effort in it, and then just be with God constantly, and distinguish His voice versus the enemy's voice, and the nuance, all the different things, because kids mother, when they have children, when I have my children, we have mother's instinct, but doesn't necessarily I recognize my daughter's voice automatically. It's over time, right? Because we do have instinct, intuition, right? But also it's something they develop, that I keep on hearing my kids' voice. So when they are 2 years or toddler, when I hear them from far, right? I can catch their cries. I can catch their voices, because it's something that developed intimately. Because they're in and out, like every day, holding them, feeding them. That is required. So learning the language is essential.
Right.
Yeah? To have it unity. But we only have a few minutes. Okay, maybe we can continue the third part, so we can talk about that, Richard. But I want to go back to that food, right? Food gathers people, and it's a really baby step. We can a very simple and easy step. You can actually put yourself into a different culture and different people's backgrounds and experience and new challenges and new adventure. And if you really, he beat me to it, because I tried my first fall when I was 21. So you are younger than me. So you're more adventurous than I am. But if you haven't tried Korean food, you must try. That's a good start. Korean food is amazing. I'm sure other food is amazing too. But just try that, the new, different dishes here and there, even the drinks. There are so many amazing drinks out there you can explore, and food. And food reflects the culture, right? And then so it's a good way to start. So maybe until we meet next time, maybe try that one first. Try go into a different restaurant, talk to those people with different backgrounds, different language, different color, different language. Just try them and get to know them a little better, and see how God's gonna lead you, right?
And go in with the right heart too, because again, if you're going into another culture, a lot of times it's very easy, the language is different, or maybe they're speaking your language, but it's hard to understand, and it's very easy to get annoyed by that.
Right.
If you're not in the right state of mind. You have to go in realizing, hey, there's a possibility we might have trouble communicating, but we're going to make the best of it.
Yes. So thank you again, Richard. Maybe I'll see you next time for third part.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. I wish you have a great day, and God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.